Coming up on Mountain News this morning, as Hurricane Ian continues to impact the state of Florida, Eastern Kentuckians staying in the Sunshine State feel the effects of the storm. And Kentucky crews prepare to help the people of Florida recover and rebuild after the storm passes through.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning to you. It's Thursday, almost 5 o'clock here on this Thursday morning. I don't know why I told you the day twice. Let's head over to Brandon for a look at our forecast. And Brandon, you already told me last night you turned on the heat at your house.
I did. It was got down to 65. Temperature's a little bit warmer overall this morning, but when I left the house, it was in the 30s. So a cool morning out there for a lot of folks. And again, quick update before we go to graphics. Hurricane Ian is now Tropical Storm Ian as of the 5 a.m. update from the Hurricane Center, down to 65-mile-an-hour winds, and it's moving northeast at 8, almost back into the Atlantic off of the Florida coast. We'll keep you posted on that. Now let's go to our temperatures this morning, and you'll see, bless you, temperatures in the 30s in Jonesville, but everybody else, actually in Irvin too, they just dropped to 39. Everybody else is in the 40s except for Logan. They're at 50 this morning, several spots closer to 50 than they were yesterday, so still chilly. Grab you some coffee this morning, a little extra to max when we needed, and your out the door forecast. We probably will start the day with a few clouds, a little bit of patchy fog out there. I think it's going to be a mix of sun and clouds though throughout the day. So if you see some sunshine this morning, count yourself as lucky. That will not last too much longer because the remnants of Ian will be on our doorstep before you know it. I'll talk about that more in just a few minutes. Dakota?
All right, Brendan, thank you. As Ian continues to move across the Florida Peninsula, we are hearing stories from those impacted by the storm, one being a Pike County native who works at our sister station in Sarasota. We were able to talk with her about how she planned for the storm. Melissa Ratliff is a Pike County native and lives in Sarasota, Florida. She works at our sister station WWSB as a digital content manager. She was sent to our sister station WCJB in Gainesville, Florida to work remotely, still focusing on getting information out to their viewers, and this storm is something her station has been planning for.
I don't think we could have anticipated it until just recently, in the last few days, the strength that Ian would show. And it's now, I think, 2 miles away from becoming a Category 5 hurricane. She tells me those inside her station are there to stay until the storm passes. She also says their crews out in the field are in safe locations reporting on Ian. I was getting text messages at 2 and 3 a.m. once I arrived, a few hours after I arrived at Gainesville, to say, hey, this is starting to heat up. Can you jump on and help us? And ever since then, it's been a nonstop wall-to-wall. Melissa also worked with WYMT for a week when deadly flooding hit our region. She says when she was driving to Gainesville, she saw many power crews heading down, reminding her of the help Eastern Kentucky received. It is true that Kentuckians were wandering all over the place, but having gone through something similar yourselves recently, I think you know just how devastating this can be, but how it also pulls us together. Showing how Americans work through disasters together. Dakota Makris, WYMT Mountain News. Well, Melissa tells us her station, WWSB, is built to withstand hurricanes. She says if the station does go off the air, which I have not heard any reports of that so far, she is the station's backup anchor on their digital platforms, so their viewers will still know what is happening. And we talked with another Eastern Kentucky native who is visiting family in Tampa. Hazard First Baptist Church pastor Tim Reynolds arrived in Tampa last week. When we interviewed him Wednesday morning, the rain started to pick up, and now he is just waiting out the storm with his family.
Jesus tells us that, in this world we're going to have tribulation, but he said, be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. And we're not exempt from these hard times and these difficult times, but we know even during times like these, Jesus says, be of good cheer.
Pastor Reynolds says his family prepared for the storm. He hopes to catch a flight back home here to Hazard on Saturday. Well, many people in Lexington consider Florida a great vacation destination, but Hurricane Ian forced many to shelter in place or evacuate. As winds intensified or heavy rain falls, those Kentuckians in Florida are doing their best to stay safe. Lexington native Amanda Allen and her family are Disney World fanatics, so she says being in Orlando during this storm was just a little change of scenery.
I feel totally safe here at Disney anyway. I feel like the hotels and all the structures are equipped to handle hurricanes. So, I mean, I feel like I'm safer here than, anywhere else. So our plan is just to ride it out for, the next 2 days.
Walt Disney World and Universal Studios have both closed. Disney's parks will also be closed today, but the Disney Resort Hotel will remain open. Guests are urged to shelter in place in their rooms. Universal Studios has a similar plan in place. Even before Ian made landfall, the wind and rain had already done damage. Take a look at the flooding under this home in Key West. You can see how deep the water is and watch as this person walks outside. Even cars were seen half underwater. This was before the storm made landfall. Just as the damage preceded landfall, so did FEMA's response.
We've put together a really robust search and rescue capability that we have stationed right now in Miami that includes our urban search and rescue teams, members of the Department of Defense, Department of Interior, the U.S. Coast Guard and CBP, along with the state, because we know we're going to have to get into these communities and see who's there and make sure we can get them to safety.
Well, FEMA's workforce monitored the damage and impacts of Ian across Florida yesterday. Workers at FEMA's National Response Coordination Center in Washington, D.C. are working with state and local officials across the Sunshine State as well as neighboring states. Resources are not only being moved into Florida, but also being staged in Alabama. Meals and clean water will be moved into Florida once it's safe to do so and Ian moves out. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says the government is doing what it can to help those who are affected.
Thus far, every request Florida has made of the federal government has been approved. The bipartisan government funding bill the Senate is on track to pass this week will ensure the Federal Disaster Relief Fund is fully resourced at this critical moment. We're all keeping the people of Florida at the forefront of our thoughts. We'll stand ready to help our colleagues from Florida, the governor, and local officials however we can.
Kentucky utility crews are heading south, waiting to help with recovery efforts after Hurricane Ian passes through Florida. More than 200 Kentucky utility team members left out before the sun came up Wednesday morning, heading toward the Sunshine State. The crews will go to staging areas to wait as the storm moves across Florida. Then they will help put things back together.
Not only from here in Lexington, but from Danville, Richmond, Maysville, London, from Shelbyville, from all over central Kentucky and other parts.
Well, the cost of crews traveling to help out is paid for the host utilities in Florida. Remnants of the hurricane could move into eastern Kentucky this weekend. Well, thank you so much for getting your chilly Thursday morning started with us here on Mountain News this morning. When we come back, cooler temps in the forecast could mean danger for your garden. We'll share some tips on how to keep your plants safe when we come back.
We're staying dry for now, but rain chances will arrive as early as this weekend. I'll tell you about 3 minutes.